It's Thursday, October 19th. This is an end of the day SPY recap. And today on the daily chart, we end up with a two down day. We took out the low of the previous day and we held below the midpoint of the previous day. And, we kind of closed, we moved lower and we closed near the lows of the day. More importantly, we took out a key target on the weekly chart, which I'll get into in a minute, in terms of the significance going forward and the significance of today's price action. But yesterday, after kind of moving to the halfway point of this bar, on a red day, we took out the high of that and then we moved to the halfway point of the prior week. We were definitely targeting the lows of the previous week, and I discussed that we had 2 days to get there. So keep that in mind. That was very important in terms of judging today's price action. Now that we have a 3-bar, we'll get into that in a minute. But if you looked at this bar and you look back on the charts, you'd say, oh, it's a 2-down day. We had a target down here. It opened up and it was red and it was an easy trade. Well, if we look at the price action all day long, it wasn't as clear cut or straight, forward in a line as it might seem. We actually started down, we went up for a while, we went down, we went up, we went down. So look at that price action. In a second, I'll show you why it still wasn't that difficult, given your context to kind of know what to do. But it was definitely, and the Federal Reserve, Powell came out and he was talking during this period of time, and the algorithms use that to kind of take out stops. I'll get into that in a second. But if you look at the first bar, just my methodology again, pre-market range was between the blue lines. I discussed yesterday after this, close, this down day, that we were likely going to take out the low of that day and work towards those weekly lows. So, I said maybe we start right out of the gates and head down there, but maybe given, we're at a little bit of exhaustion risk, we might start higher and then eventually work down there. So in this case, we did start a little bit higher, and that was kind of exciting because you had a chance possibly to get in early before these lows were taken out of yesterday and then those targets were hit. But out of the gates here, if you look at it, that first bar was red. The second bar for just a split second started down. You might have jumped in there aggressively. You might not have if you watched it here. Then this on third bar, you had a chance. There was a red bar. I'll show you in a second. There was a moment where it was breaking down. You could have jumped in there. And then, it kind of went choppy and held the midpoint of that first bar. If you somehow you jumped in and got stopped out, you had to look at get right back in again, and then you had the opportunity to take advantage of that move, at least to take out target number one, which was the low yesterday in the pre-market lows, which we, expected to happen and then even go further. If you want to look at this more, on the 5-minute chart, I watched the 5-minute and 15 at the same time. If we look at the open here today on the 5-minute chart and what really developed before it made that morning move down, first of all, it started down bar 1, bar 2, bar 3. You could see here on the next, right at the start of the 15-minute bar, it really didn't break through it. It immediately hit that low and then popped right up. So you kind of were still watching it, in my opinion. I think on this bar, you could have definitely jumped in as it was breaking down. That's the third 15-minute bar, or it's the end of the second 15-minute bar. Then you had it going down, and then boom, you had one 5-minute thing where it came up, kind of held the midpoint just for a second, and then immediately reversed. So if somehow you jumped in here and got nervous on this bar and got stopped out, you had to jump right back in here, in my opinion, on this next 5-minute bar. And that was kind of this big 15-minute bar that got to our target down here. So it's just depending how you played it. You just had to be biased all the time to the downside and be kind of aggressive with it, in my opinion. But, it's just how you want to play it. And it was a little tricky here, but anyway, then it goes down and hits your target. So there's an opportunity to scale out, and it's a quick base hit trade. It's a pretty nice move here, and then it paused and tried to go down again below that, and then kind of had that reversal. So to me, that's an area where you don't know what's happening for sure on the day, so you got to kind of exit. I think right here you had over an hour near those lows and it couldn't follow through, so there was your opportunity to exit. Now what I did, and I shot a video, it came up strongly, it finally took out these pre-market highs. And then it kind of paused for a while. Then it tried to go up for a second time. And when it failed on that second time, I bought puts here to continue lower. And the key reason here is because we took out this first target, but we still had, our weekly low target down here to hit. And therefore, you're still thinking short. You're not anywhere above the midpoint of the prior day. And this is just, you kind of know that sometimes on these choppy environments, you're going to take out liquidity on the upside before heading lower towards our target. So anyway, I shot a video how this was a good trade here. But then look what happens. It takes out that low, and then it immediately decides to bounce up again. Now, when it took out the low of the day and hit this low, it still had not reached our weekly target. And that's why, if, first of all, I ended up taking most of my gains down here and then just wanted to watch what happened. So that's the way I scale out when it hit its target, which was the low of the day. This was a pretty big move here, even though it happened pretty quick, And anyway, then it comes up again, and then you get the 2 up, 2 down. And the reason you can consider even taking that, it's the only option you have, is because that weekly target's still in play. This low here did not reach the weekly target. Anyway, this 2 up, 2 down right here then takes out the low of the day and reaches our weekly target, which is down here. And now we close with a 3 bar on the week. So, we still have 1 day to go in the week. It's kind of tricky to know really what develops tomorrow. First of all, you have a couple of things. You have exhaustion risk, down, down, down. Even though it should take out the low of this bar, you're kind of in a fair value gap here, which could be a little bit of support. You kind of see now it's probably heading towards these lows, but after 3 days in a row, you don't know if it's going to keep momentum. It's a 3 bar, so at any point on the weekly chart you reach your target. You don't really, it's not an actionable signal here going forward. Obviously, the odds are this bar will probably close red tomorrow and then follow through into next week. What's interesting is the monthly chart now has finally turned red. We've been talking about that. It was in 2 down mode the whole time, even though it went green for a while. We're red again, so we have the rest of the month to get to this target. So there's definitely still continuity to the downside. It's just that at the very short run, we reached a target here, and we're a little bit of exhaustion risk. So as always, you can play, the pre-market range and the opening bar and everything else tomorrow. And if it goes lower, you can give it a shot. But just know at any moment, it's an exhaustion risk, and it's just going to be tough in terms of, what to expect. I don't know if it might pause here and want to start up before it goes lower. At some point we'll get maybe a good actionable signal to get down there, or sometimes it just goes red, red, red. Given all the conflict in the world and the markets breaking down, maybe it just wants to go red for another day strongly, close the week really strong red, which would follow through into next week. So that's the only bias in play. If somehow you get a 2 up day in here, that could be an actionable signal to start back to those highs, but you don't anticipate that right now. So as long as you stay below the midpoint of this day, let's just see how Friday ends. It's always tricky, but today, even though it was very choppy, it was kind of clear at least what you were trying to do, and that was being to the sell side the whole way. I wasn't even trading the SPY here. I was trading more Tesla at the beginning. I shot some videos of that. So that's how I was taking advantage of the downward move. But if you're looking at the SPY outright, that's kind of the way I, look at price action today. Choppy, but definitely with a bias to the downside, and definitely some opportunities, to scale out and to kind of hit targets. First target being the low of yesterday and the pre-market low. Second target being the, after it failed up here, the intraday low, and then the final target is the intraday low again, and that weekly target. So that's what today was. It's just a matter of kind of knowing the context ahead of time, knowing how I view, that first bar and everything that happens from there and those pre-market ranges. And that's why, you could have definitely at least known how to, be considering what to do and not being confused in all this chop. But I'm not saying it was the most straightforward day either. So anyway, we will see what happens tomorrow with a bias to the downside.